It's my responsibility as I'm documenting these current files I've been digging up to share with you a piece I never published for some reason. I wrote it in 2000 and I don't know. But it's 6 years after this event happened, when I was a 6th grader. Literally, I have it documented. So that means 6th grader, 6 years later. I don't remember. But it's pretty old. It's with this picture of Spencer Stevie and some more obscure lyrics I like don't ever share. And chords and quotes, and because this is going to take a while, I guess I'm not worried about time. You're just going to have to listen. Can't believe I'm reading this. This is going to be retarded. Here we go. Not an authority figure, a bully. I've tested the lines. I've walked through school before with my hat on, before and after hours, while listening to my iPod. I've never ever received verbal abuse for it. I am going to pause on this first sentence because I have received verbal abuse for it. In fact, one time I went back to the high school when I was probably 20. And I was with my buddy Mike McManus. There was a new gym teacher. The students were marching in lines down the hall. It's hard for me to remember exactly what it was because I don't think I was wearing a hat. But I had my headphones on, and I'm older, of course. And I was walking down the hallway, and he immediately approached me and thumped me. He didn't really thump me. He just started at me. I'm not going to really go into that. I don't really need to make an accusation, and I don't think it reflects the community there because they're awesome. They're awesome. They really are. It's just this one guy that, just like anyone else that thinks I'm worthless piece of crap. I've never ever received any verbal abuse for it. I've thought to myself and wondered how such a lame situation has ever reason to get so out of hand. Some authority figures and teachers have authority problems. Problems with exaggerating the most ridiculous situations and over-disciplining for them. It isn't an appropriate action if you want to graduate a bunch of children into the real world. Let them get walked over by people that understand how to be treated as an adult and demand that respect. Because they are only kids, they will remain kids if you have it your way. Kids are becoming more aggressive in crazy ways like drugs and alcohol because that cannot be allowed to become adults in places that count. They are forced in subordinate position when some would be ready to take the world into their own hands if only they could learn how. Instead, their spirits are broken until they don't remember what they were missing out on, in a way that I cannot understand or simply plan out right here. But as an adult, I hope you understand what I mean. When I was in 7th, maybe 6th grade, I sat next to a kid named Nick Knight. He was borderline alternative education. I remember how I was studious and enjoyed the math subject. I remember getting him excited about it as well. Pretty soon, he worked faster and harder than me. I still remember. I remember the spirit, the over-the-top, rise against spirit that crackled in his bones and stung in his breath. For a while I was completely intimidated by a student that by any means I should have considered dumber than I was. He was ahead of most kids in my middle school world. That was something, because I remember how he would get the lecture. Oh yeah. I remember when we got to sit next to each other too. And I had this nice brunette teacher, and we were in the middle of the class, and we shared tables. It was nice. I'm going through my filing, It is real interesting. Everything changed one day when a simple project of paper mache, a bit of a slip, got splashed. We joked about it, threw some at each other, like the children that we were, then continued working at the same pace, if not better. Later, the teacher came by. It was a substitute. I should say that. Which is something. I think about me being a substitute teacher, or a teacher at all, and sometimes I think it would be awesome. We were working hard. She grabbed our project and literally tore it in half and then threw it in the waste. And I'm not exaggerating, it was gone. It got annihilated. And that lady, I didn't put it in here, so like I got so flipped out because she broke the thing I was working on that whole time. Like we were working on it for a solid 45 minutes. And I remember I had it like some on my arm and in my hand, and I just got kicked out of the classroom to go to the office, and I was like so angry, and I was going down the hall, and I put my hand out and I wiped it on all the lockers. And then I was in such a lecture for that. Oh my god. Everyone was so mad that I put paper mache on the lockers. And they didn't even care about the story. He was like, you can't put paper mache on the lockers. That sucked. She talked about disciplinary action for 5 minutes, then ordered us out of the classroom. We were in trouble over a paper mache problem. We didn't do anything wrong. That was the most irresponsible action for kids our age. A mess about the diameter of a can of Coke. I cannot begin to express how pissed off I was about that moment. I remember it to this day. It has been at least 6 years, correct? I remember it like yesterday because I saw the fire in Nick's eyes turn the situation over and label the school as a violator and disrespectful, as an enemy. I will never forget that moment. I know Nick is an alternative student now. I don't know what he is doing with this life. I heard Johnny Goebel exaggerated into a serious problem over nothing. It was not righteous. Literally banned from ever visiting our school again for wearing a hat. That has developed from previous situations where advantage has been sought and found. He is a passive person and obviously accepted the fact he is subjugated. I think that is wrong. Is this the only example? Or does this happen to other kids too? I don't really feel like I have the leniency or whatever to just go and talk about him. But I know that I can say that he was discharged from the Air Force and he's on veteran disability. And that's the most American thing you can do is join that system. And it was the most awful thing to ever hear. Oh God, I can't even start reflecting and telling stories because it will just hurt. I know he was rolling his eyes. I can see the way he sighs about lame situations in my mind. I can see the argument on your side. I can, yes. But it seems like he was lured into a trap where he has been trained to fail. It was disrespectful on John's part, but I wish he would have won, because he never does. And so he hasn't learned how. So he hasn't learned how is how I wrote it. That is marketing in the end. That is business in life. Do not judge and you will not be judged. But as soon as you are judged, you need to fight back for status or you are subjugated. I feel like John was the one disrespected. He was never asked to remove his hat nicely. It was a confrontation from the first second. There was a consistent attack where any retaliation on John's part put him in a worse situation because it was a one-way argument, authority issue. Of course, that's the 3-strike law right there. If you haven't taken that into consideration when you're voting for your president, you really should, because even it's really questionable, because in one circumstance when I was in the waiting room in the court, I was watching a guy get prosecuted for something like 8 years because he walked back into a store and stole something again that he had been banned from previously, and it was the 3rd strike. And I thought, well, That guy had it coming. I don't think he should die for it, but he had it coming. What an idiot and a thief. I don't think that thieves are righteous or worth salvation. He doesn't deserve salvation. He might be worth it. He might have done something great, but he doesn't deserve it for that. You got to keep into the statistic. There's always something. A statistic for the amount of decibels that can be considered a noise disturbance in a community when a party's going on. Obviously, if someone actually cared, they would have that meter, and then they would know, yeah, we're not going to exceed this, so that when the authorities come over, we can say, we're trying to behave like rational humans. But in one circumstance, they don't own a recorder. In the other, they're just like too stupid. And then, I don't know, it's your third strike for having people over. And, you can hide in your home talking on the telephone with each other. But when are you going to open up your eyes? I have got to keep going. Then other kids reacting to the situation asked, why? The answer was, it has to do with respect, and maybe your parents never taught you that. I feel this is an immediate attack. That is an authority issue. Right there, that's something. Here we are. I wish I knew when I wrote this, but wishing doesn't matter. People treat the problem differently. Praying won't make my wish come true. I avoid the problem by just accepting it. I respect people even if I don't really feel like it. Other people don't care if they get put into confrontation, even though that will cause altercation. But you see my point maybe? The issue is an important discussion of school-authority relations and how they are being carried out. I feel like it is in a negative way. There are easily different ways to come up with answers, not temper tantrums. Well, is this really an applicable paragraph? That one's sort of like one of them immature paragraphs. It was demanding respect in a very disrespectful way. A way I've seen transpire in 1,000 situations where someone sees an advantageous situation, an opportunity where they can vent their pent-up aggression and sickness that has been accumulating throughout a bad day, a prime target. Okay. Apparently, I also recognized that was a bad paragraph in the past and tried to validate the weakness of that creative paragraph with this stronger paragraph about logic. Would my mother be confronted about wearing a hat in our school? I do not believe so. I don't think anyone would bat an eye. I don't think this thought line would have ever gotten started. Wearing a hat after hours is not disrespectful. The school requisite requiring removal of hats in respect for the school was abused today and in a very disrespectful way. A very ironic way, because the people that are supposed to be growing up are getting forced down and manipulated by their peers. It makes me sick to see it because no one notices. There are so many delinquent urban school-going youth that I don't even read reports on or understand, but I know that someone I won't mention was literally her freaking counselor got her jaw unset by an unruly young kid. And where are they coming from? Who are out there? Because they're always creeps and they're always getting on me and nagging me. I can't go anywhere without getting threatened all the time. It's so awful out there, I'm telling you. And then you meet lovely people and you say, how can I ever say that it's awful out there? There's all these really great people. Well, I'm not going to be able to completely summarize the entire community. I know that we have people that are repenting for sins they haven't committed and that they are having problems with themselves and others. And they're not literally not able to comprehend what's happening in other people's lives, but they're not going to care about what's happening in your life, and it doesn't matter because you probably never were meant to cross paths, and I don't even know why I care. Even about that first one, why was that first? And the second one is people that have ideals, like concepts, and they're deliberate about something, but when they see people that don't fit, like me on Art Prize, going downtown trying to sell my drawings 1 year, 2 years ago, and getting looked down on, and it was outrageous. And then even just this last Art Prize in Grand Rapids, where I wanted to sell the book I wrote, and I said I was a local author, and I tried to just sell them for $7, and they cost $4.80, and everyone's saying how art is so important and how people should promote it. But the people I were talking to were like afraid I was going to mug them, and I was wearing a corduroy jacket. I had my hair nice. I shaved. I was looking good. I have no idea. I met this older guy, like a 34-year-old guy, and he was riding his bike, and he bought my book, and he paid me 11 or $14 for it. He was like, "This is so cool. I can't wait to talk to you." He's reading it and then talking about it with me. And then I never heard from him again. He's like, "I can't ever write lyrics for my songs." And then, there's the other situations where you see these people that are doing community service through religious organizations, and it should really be something that's administered by the federal government for the entire United States, because it's really unusual how people reach other people, and I think it's a waste of time for other people to be doing things like that. I think that they could work on empowering themselves, but I'm not going to say that what they're doing is wrong. But what the hell? There is no hell here. Everything's going really well. I should be making a nice report on some positive writings I found. I have great stuff I dug up. I have some really positive things I could be writing about, but what is it about this one instigation that just like seeing this undocumented poem I wrote, essay, that I have in my files that I didn't put in my book? I don't know. I have no idea. A very ironic way, because the people that are supposed to be growing up are getting forced down and manipulated by their peers. It makes me sick to see it because no one notices. I would laugh if I visited school to be treated like a student, a kid, or Alright, sorry. I almost said where I'm from. This is an opinion. What I'm stating may represent or show or allude to people that really exist, but these characters are fictional and only intended as puppets in a independent conceptual skit of some whatever that is completely independent and dependent on only the illustrator's mind. High school students graduating to just be someone's bitch in some workplace, but that's besides the point, and just makes it even more obvious to me that John wasn't disobedient. He was so obedient that he allowed you all to treat him like a student, and he just went. And he never inserted himself and became like a lieutenant or a captain. He just got it, man. If you would have died in the Civil War, man, World War, man, you would have died. The no-death war policy is nice, because I still get to talk to him, but it's not like we are who we were 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I don't even see him. This is an adult, and just one example of a person that has been subjugated their entire life. No one in your position would realize that it is the adult peer's fault and the responsibility for any accountability and those kinds of characteristics that people have. John is an amazing person, one of my best friends. He is misunderstood and abused. He is innocent. He never goes anywhere starting a fight We've been attacked, but we don't attack. He just does his thing with the best intentions, and people flip out on him in a lack of patience. They can't wait for him. He responds slow, and not from lack of intelligence, but from a completely different angle of thought. His is a world of acceptance. He was forced in this way and has to find his own way out. I keep hearing about my brother in math class and his ridiculous encounters with the teacher. I know that there is a way to get through to him. I wouldn't stand up for him if I didn't. These detentions all the time, tardies to school are one thing and a completely different issue, but these recent detentions are all from disrespectful situations. I've heard, but I'm not well informed. I've taught Alex math myself, and he never has an attitude like he has now. He is in a position where he feels like he is not capable of math and does not want to be capable of math. That is literally reverse on the scale of math learning. It is also getting worse with time, the only result of which would be his teacher or the other math peers. They are showing him that people that know math well have attitude problems. I honestly don't understand why or all the implications. I think this is an issue that needs to be faced. These are adults, right? I feel like this must be a problem if it is worth these few people I am close enough to notice. Is it common? As a student, I don't have any answers, but I feel that you should see my perspective on this. Am I disrespectful for saying any of this? Maybe you could inform me. I needed to get this out and into consideration. I just heard on the news how we're going to raise a nation of pushovers. Edward Van Houten out.